Diablo 4 is bad. Now we're going to take time in this video to talk about why Diablo 4 is bad, but not just why, but what makes it bad and how to fix the things that make it bad. So Season 2 can be better than all of the previous seasons. Now, of course, while I was working on this video, they did release the details for Season 2, and there will be a video coming out about that soon. However, they only fixed one of the problems I had in this video, and I just took that problem out of this video. So everything in this video is still a problem that they have not addressed yet. Now, that's not saying they won't address it before Season 2. This is just my constructive feedback for what they need to change. So with that, let's jump right into the video. I think one of the biggest answers to why Diablo 4 is bad is the stash space. Overall in the game, we have no place to put our gear. If you want to have one character, even just with 2 or 3 builds, you don't have the room. If you want to have multiple characters with multiple builds on each character, play a different game. There's no chance that you can get all of the gear you need. You can't save gear that, you potentially might use because you don't have space for it. We don't have stash space at all. Even with the addition of the extra stash tab they introduced in patch 1.1.1, we still don't have enough. Now, I do have to give them credit because I had another gripe with the stash tab system, and that is that there was no search functionality to find the gear you wanted. Now, they did include in the Season 2 teaser that there will now be a search function for the stash tab. So I have to give them credit there. They fixed one of the gripes I had with the stash tab, but we still need more space. Whether that's making the stash tabs bigger themselves or adding more stash tabs, we need something. Also, an auto sort functionality would be really nice, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I would rather have more stash space first. Now, next, I was going to talk about renown because I'm actually in a split camp where I'm okay with them not just getting rid of the renown system, basically. What they've done in the Season 2 trailer, they confirmed that now renown is a one and done. You do your renown and it's done. It transfers over now. And I'm okay with this change. It doesn't make me upset in any way. I would also have been okay if they just would have changed up renown. My idea of how to fix renown would have been to keep the same system in place where areas discovered, altars of Lilith, and the main city waypoints carry over every season. And what I would have done is taken the limit off of dungeons and stuff like that and just make it so by playing the game, you get renown. Maybe by doing hell tides, killing monsters in hell tides. Maybe every 100 monsters you kill in a hell tide, you get a few renown points. Every dungeon you run, no matter if it's the first time you ran it or not, you get some renown points. Maybe you get a tiny little bit of renown points for doing a cellar in each zone. Or maybe, killing a world boss in that zone. Just stuff like that. Just make it so by playing the game, you complete it organically. You don't have to go out of your way. That's how I would have liked to see it done. But, I'm fine with the one and done. One and done is probably what most people would prefer, especially if you have limited time playing the game. So with that, I think it's a good change, and they have confirmed that for Season 2. Now, next up, we have a problem with Diablo that really does need to be addressed. And the devs are working on it, but the main problem right now is the stats on the gear are entirely misleading. If you're not a person that can put hours and hours into testing, then the stats on the gear mean pretty much nothing. It is extremely hard to tell if something is multiplicative or additive, and it makes a massive difference when building builds. And overall, this needs to be addressed. Even on the uniques to some of the most powerful items in the games, these were wrong. One of the Barber hearts, which was recently fixed, it was bugged for a month, where it was doing an additive instead of a multiplicative bonus, meaning that it was way weaker than it was supposed to be. Overall, this is a huge problem. There's still a ton of these items in the game, and hopefully they get these fixed soon, because right now, like I said, if you're not a streamer that could put hours and hours into testing, you're not going to know what your gear is really giving you. And even the definitions in the skill tree can be super misleading, super hard to understand. And I would really like to see them take a look at this and maybe change it for, the more average player to be able to understand what's even happening. Like most of the problems in this area, what it says just strictly isn't true. Even changing it just to the true definition would make a world of change. And that's really all I'm asking for, is just make it so the definitions actually do what they say they do in this game. Now, next up, we have one of the bigger topics in this video, and that is Nightmare Dungeons. Nightmare Dungeons, at first, you're like, oh, they're so fun. It's something new. You can push to see how high you can go, how low you fall and basically what your class is doing. And like I said, they're fun at first. But once you get to around level 80, you're into World Tier 4 at that point, and you've been running Nightmare Dungeons. And then reality kicks in. You have nothing to do but Nightmare Dungeons until level 100. Nightmare Dungeons aren't a bad mechanic in the game, but for being the only endgame mechanic, they get boring. I necessarily wouldn't change Nightmare Dungeons, but there are some things I would change about the endgame. Now, the developers have announced they're adding 5 endgame bosses to Diablo 4 in Season 2. But does this solve the problem of having no endgame content? Yes and no. So I see it as this. We'll have something more to aim for. So hopefully, they haven't confirmed this yet, but hopefully the 5 endgame bosses are spread out. So like you have Uber Lilith at level 100. Then you have maybe one at level 90, one level 80. That would be nice. And then maybe one even above Uber Lilith. And then who knows where the other one falls. I'm not sure where they'll put it. That would be the ideal because it would give you something to aim for and to test how strong your character actually is. And that is a great change to the endgame, but I don't think it's enough. In my opinion, we need a World Tier 5. And World Tier 5 has been found in the files of the game for quite a while now. And we don't know when they're going to implement it or how they're going to implement it. I think World Tier 5 would make a pretty big difference, but even adding World Tier 5, they need to do something else. And what my opinion is they need to add seasonal content to the end game. As it is right now, seasonal content is done by the time you're level 70 or 75. You have all of the Wrathful hearts you need, and there's nothing left to do. And I worry that Season 2 is going to be exactly the same. In my opinion, I'm worried that Season 2 is just going to be a reskin of Malignant hearts into vampiric powers, and that's what it's going to be. We're just going to slot different vampiric powers in our jewelry, and they might do different stuff, but really, it's just a reskin of the first season. Now, I could be wrong. We don't have any gameplay. We don't know how it works yet. We just have the teasers, but I am worried. You know, maybe they'll prove me wrong, and they'll have all of this endgame content for us, like featuring seasonal stuff. I think it would dramatically improve Diablo 4's level of fun, especially for endgame characters. Now, moving on to our next thing is overworld stuff to do. Right now, once you get to about level 70 or 75, you don't do anything in the open world anymore. And I think that is a really big letdown because the open world stuff is what makes Diablo fun. Levels 1 through 50 or 1 through 70 are fun because you can do open world stuff and you're not penalized for it. You know, if you see a Helltide, great. Go do it while you're getting level 70. Get some legendary gear. Go do stuff. It's fun. You don't have to run dungeons over and over again. You know, if you go see a world event, it's worth it to go do Legion events before you're level 70. It's great. But once you start the Nightmare Dungeon slog, it's completely worthless to do overworld events. It's a huge letdown. Now, what I would like to see with the overworld events is they don't have to make them equivalent to Nightmare Dungeons and XP gain. They can be less. It just can't be so much less that it's not worth it. You know, if I want to take a small decrease in XP gain and do open world stuff, that'd be fine. I'm okay with a small decrease, but right now as it is, you gain practically 0 experience for doing an open world event in World Tier 4. Now this might come as a hot take here because not very many people are talking about it, but crafting, it's boring. There's literally only one crafting mechanic in the game, and that is just re-rolling stats, basically using gambling and spending all of your money just to get one re-rolled slot. Now to me, that's not fun. You know, I want to be able to go and kind of give myself an edge. I don't want to spend 20 million gold on one piece of jewelry for one build. It just feels like a spender that has no real value. So here's what I propose to how we fix it. We add endgame items that drop from mobs and bosses that allow us to use in combination with the current system to give us an extra chance at getting the stuff we want. Maybe that we can even get a bonus. So by using these endgame items, we can actually even get better gear with better stats. You know, maybe before this, the cap was at 60 intelligence for an item, but if we focus intelligence, you have a higher chance of getting it on the reroll. Maybe it could go to 70 or 80. Give us something to grind for and make it endgame. Incorporate the endgame element into the game. That's where we're doing all of the theory crafting and build crafting, and that's where you're perfecting your set. Now, in my opinion, these items that they create for this should drop from mobs. So they could drop in Nightmare Dungeons, which we'll be doing a lot of, but it's not the main way to farm them. If you get one from a Nightmare Dungeon, it should be like a bonus, like, oh, hey, that dropped, that's really cool. They don't usually. I propose we put them in overworld events. Now, this only works if they buff the experience of overworld events. You know, maybe when you kill a world boss, it has a guaranteed drop for 2 or 3 of these endgame items. Maybe when you're doing a Helltide or a Legion event, the mobs there have like a 50 to 30% increased drop rate of these items. So while doing this, you're getting the endgame items to focus your gear and maybe even make it better than we could in any other season. and we're getting XP from the overworld items, so it's not just worthless. Like right now, if you need Helltide Cinders to reroll gear, you basically are just throwing away XP until you get enough. It's worthless. It's not fun. It makes Helltides boring in my opinion. But with this, it would give overworld events more meaning and take more of the RNG out of the crafting. Make it so you can focus certain things, maybe even get a bonus to even make the crafting system more evolved. And this could just be the first step for crafting, as I'd really like to see crafting expanded on in this game. Now next, I want to talk about the Paragon Board, and specifically, why do we have to take 1 point out of a time when we're trying to change our character? Why can't we click on a board and just refund entire boards with one button? Overall, it makes no sense that we have to go point by point playing basically reverse Jenga to redo our class. It's really, really annoying. And if they want to take it a step further, they could even add presets. You know, I'm okay with it costing money to switch between these presets, but make it so that you could save 2 or 3 builds of Paragon boards and switch between them. You know, one for bossing for Uber Lilith, one for, you know, running dungeons. Like all of this different stuff would make the game so much more enjoyable, especially for endgame players. You know, if you could have 2 or 3 builds for what you're doing, maybe an overworld, a high nightmare dungeon survivability build, you know, one for clearing super fast, one for killing bosses, it would make the game so much more fun. It would give you more to go for. Whereas right now, you only have enough room and time to go for one single build. Now that I know is a stretch, adding the save slots for Paragon boards, but please, please just allow us to respec entire boards at a time. You know, let me refund that entire board and go board by board. That's all I'm really asking. It would be a super easy change to implement. Just let us respec board by board, please. And now the last point in this video I want to make is for my Eternal server players. Right now, if you're playing on Eternal, you're having a very hard time with the game, and that's because of the nerfs that happened pre-season. Now, we learned that the nerfs they did pre-season were because of the hearts they introduced in Season 1, and our characters were basically going to be too strong. They had to nerf the player so that the hearts didn't make us overpowered and destroy everything. I think that's a backwards way of looking at it. If you overpowered the seasonal mechanic that much that you have to nerf the base, then you're doing something wrong. You know, maybe introduce new content that's harder so that you need the new seasonal equipment. I think it's just wrong to nerf the Eternal players' characters when sometimes people don't have time for a seasonal character. You know, maybe they only play a few hours a week and they just want to keep their Eternal character and get it to level 100. Well, now they're struggling because of these nerfs and they didn't get anything to compensate. If you need to make changes for a season to, you know, to balance out the seasonal mechanic, then make it only for seasonal characters. You know, I think it was wrong what they did to Eternal characters, and especially now that characters are even struggling to do the stuff they were beforehand. Now with that, that is going to wrap up my Diablo 4 is bad video. Now everything in here is meant to be constructive criticism. I am no way hating on the developers of this game or the game in general. I really just want to see this game succeed. And this is my way of providing the developers feedback about what we would like to see changed. Now, of course, I would love to hear your, opinions and comments down below. And I want to know what you guys think, what needs to be changed and what you're excited for in Season 2. So with that, thank you everybody for watching. I hope to see you guys in a future video. See you next time.